بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والجنة للموحدين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق والمرسلين نبينا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, we continuing with our course on the fiqh of fasting, as well as covering spiritual dimensions and aspects of fasting. And we need to cover the ahkam of fasting first. So the fiqh, the rulings, the do's and the don'ts. And last week our discussion revolved primarily around the meaning of fasting. And thereafter we spoke on how do we confirm that the month of Ramadan has entered. And I took some time out to speak about a lot of things that happen sort of behind the scenes within our community, how it comes about that the announcement eventually is released by Shaykh Ahmed Hendricks of the Zawiya on behalf of the Muslim Judicial Council, confirming that the moon has been sighted after in the case of Ramadan, one witness of integrity comes to him and gives testimony that he has sighted the moon. And in the case of any other month besides Ramadan, at least two witnesses. Today, I said we're going to jump into the integrals of fasting, the most important ahkam relating to fasting. We're going to be speaking about the conditions for the validity of a fast. And I don't know if the document that I prepared reached everyone or not. There's a PDF that I asked be sent around, which is a translation of the text that we're covering by one of the great scholars of Hadramaut, Shaykh al-Allama Abdullah bin Abdurragmaan Fadl al-Hadrami. And he's a well-known established jurist within the Shafi'i school. He is perhaps more well-known for the text of his title, Al-Muqaddimah Al-Hadramiyya. And this is the book that we're covering is called Al-Mukhtasar Al-Latif. So I'm going to read from that PDF, inshallah ta'ala, and thereafter comment as best as possible. So it sees if you have the PDF in front of you. If you don't, try to get it from someone that does. I don't know how to ensure that it reaches everyone. But the chapter on the conditions for the validity of fasting. The author, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that the conditions for the validity of fasting are, so there's only two real conditions. Sorry, not two. We have 5 in total. We'll cover all 5 this evening, inshallah ta'ala. And while in terms of the document, it's spread over 1.5 pages, there's quite a bit of discussion relating to each of these points. So the first condition in order for your fasting to be valid is intention. The first condition is intention. He then said that if it is an obligatory fast, even if it's a vow, meaning you took a vow that you're going to fast, that's also a category of an obligatory fast. Then tabheed, making the intention at night before entrance of Fajr, is a prerequisite. Similarly, ta'yin, or specifying whether it's a fast of Ramadan or a vow, is also a prerequisite. So what he's saying over here is that first of all, you must have an intention, and niyyah. And we know that the Shafi'is, we place a lot of intention on the niyyah. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in an authentic hadith. Not only is the hadith authentic, it's the very first hadith that Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala, narrates in his Sahih. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى دُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ امْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. Or rather, he first said, فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ لِدُنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا وَامْرَأَةٍ يَنْكِحُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. The first hadith of Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ said that actions are what by intentions. We often translate that as actions are judged. But from a pure Shafi perspective, translating the hadith as actions are judged by intentions is wrong. When we say إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, then what we mean thereby is إِنَّمَا تَصِحُّ الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Actions are only valid with intentions. If there's no intention in accompanying the action, then the action is not valid. If I don't make an intention, we all prayed Maghrib, Alhamdulillah, in congregation. How generous is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to all of us that He facilitated that you and I prayed Maghrib in congregation, and by praying in congregation, our salah was 27 times more rewarded in terms of its merit and virtue. That is the equivalent of praying salah, your Maghrib salah, 27 times. So if Maghrib took 5 minutes, then praying Maghrib 27 times will take you till beyond Isha. If I prayed it alone at home, it was just one Maghrib. When I prayed it in congregation, it became 27 Maghrib. Even if I prayed the 27 individually by myself, it's still not the equivalent of. You heard the story of a man that prayed all his salahs in the masjid. And then one day, he was running late and he missed one salah. Let's say it was Maghrib. So he didn't get Jama'ah. So he prayed the same salah 27 times over. He made Maghrib 27 times. And that evening he fell asleep, and when he fell asleep, he saw all his fellow Musallis with whom he prayed Salah. They were all riding stallions, racing in front of him to Jannah, and he was on a mule. You know what's a mule? A mule is, I think a mule is like a pony. It's a crossbreed between a donkey and a horse. He was on a mule, struggling behind him, unable to catch up with him. And he's calling out to them, wait for me, wait for me. And then he asked, why is my fellow Musallis all racing and reaching Jannah before me? And they said to him that that's because they prayed the Maghrib in Jama'ah and you did not. Even though you prayed it 27 times by yourself. Now, so Allah is generous. So, but in order for my Maghrib to have been valid, I must have made an intention. In my heart, on my tongue, I should have recited within my heart, on my tongue, Nawaitu farda salat al-Maghrib. I intend to perform the compulsory prayer of Maghrib, Allahu Akbar. If I did that, my salah is valid. If I did not do that, salah is not valid. So we understand إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ to mean that actions are only valid with intentions. The hadith goes on, the Prophet said, and every man will only get that which he intends. So whoever performed the hijrah, immigration from Makkah to Medina, which was a massive event. Leaving Makkah to Medina was not like you and I jumping on a bus, and these days we jump on a train and I leave Makkah and I go to Medina with comfort and luxury and with my bank card and my e-bucks and my dollars. When they left Makkah for Medina, it meant that everything that they worked for their entire lives, their wealth, their homes, their furniture, their cattle, whatever they had to give it up. Leaving to Makkah meant that you left every position you have and you traveled to Medina to start all over for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that you can practice your deen. So that you can pray in Jama'ah. So you can be a Muslim. That's why the companions who immigrated are special. And those who came, those who are not from those who immigrated cannot be compared to those who immigrated. Now the Muhajirin. So he said, whoever performed the hijrah for Allah and Allah's Rasul will get Allah and Allah's Rasul. And whoever performed the hijrah, there was one Sahabi, when he made the hijrah, his niyyah was actually to get married to some lady in Medina. So the Prophet said, whoever performed the hijrah for dunya or to get married to a lady will get the dunya and that lady. But they won't get Allah and Allah's Rasul. So our intention is important. So the first thing is intention. I must make a niyyah, otherwise my fasting won't be valid. With regards to my niyyah, there are two conditions for my niyyah to be valid. So the first condition for my fasting to be valid is niyyah. But in order for my niyyah to be valid, there are two conditions. The first condition is my niyyah must be made at night. At night means from after Maghrib, any time from after Maghrib until Fajr, I must make my niyyah. In Arabic, that's called tabheet. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that man lam yujammi' as-sawma qabla al-siyama qabla al-fajr fala siyama lah. The person that does not make tajmi' of fasting, and what that means is he does not make an intention for fasting during the night, fala siyama lah, there's no fasting for him. If Fajr enters, like tomorrow Fajr is 4:58. If I'm going to fast a compulsory fast tomorrow, and the clock strikes 4:58 and I have not yet made my intention, alas, there's no fast. I must, from the time Maghrib entered, Maghrib time, from the time Maghrib entered, between Maghrib and Fajr, sometime during that night, I need to keep in my heart the intention that I intend to fast the compulsory fast of Ramadan. Right? And that's why, if you stay in the masjid, for those of us that actually stay until the end of the 20 rak'ats of Taraweeh, you will notice that what the Imam does is, he recites the intention for everyone. So he says, Nawaitu sawma ghadin an adai fardi shahri Ramadan هذه سنتي لله تعالى إيمانا واحتسابا لوجه الله الكريم عز وجل. It's a long niyyah. Most of it is not necessary. What must be there is compulsory fast of Ramadan. I intend to perform the compulsory fast of Ramadan. That's what's essential. Right? You must make. The Imam makes the niyyah for everyone to ensure that nobody goes to sleep without making the niyyah. Because if you go to sleep without making a niyyah, and you oversleep and wake up when the waqt of Fajr entered, then your fast is not valid. You must now abstain from eating and drinking until Maghrib, because it's the month of Ramadan, but the fast won't be counted for you. So the intention must be there, and the intention, you have to make it during the night. Now, where's the noise come from? Somewhere at the back end. The fan is. In the city of Tarim or Shaykh, what they do is, and perhaps there's more wisdom in it. So we make the niyyah after Taraweeh. The challenge is making the niyyah after Taraweeh, and sometimes after the witr, never mind Taraweeh, or after the witr, is by the time the Imam makes the niyyah for the Jama'ah, 80% of the Jama'ah is gone already. Right? So what they do in Tarim, what they do is immediately after Maghrib Salah, once they conclude Maghrib Salah, the Imam makes an announcement, make your niyyah for fasting. So everyone already makes the niyyah after Maghrib to ensure that the niyyah was made during the night before Fajr. No. That's the one thing. The other condition with regards to the niyyah is that you must specify what fast you are fasting. So I have to specify I'm fasting the compulsory fast of Ramadan. Or you can actually leave fard out. You can say I'm fasting the fast of Ramadan, because the fast of Ramadan intrinsically is fard. I'm fasting the fast of Ramadan. And if you want to add compulsory fast, then better. Nawaitu farda sawmi Ramadan. That's what you need to do. And that must be done every night before the new day enters. So everyone has that. It sounds simple, but if I fail to do it, my fasting is not valid. If I fail to do it, my fasting will not be valid. However, that's only a compulsory fast. If I'm fasting a sunnah fast, then tabheed, making the niyyah at night, is not a condition. Why? Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, once he came to his home, I think it was the home of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. This was after Ishraq. The Prophet prayed Fajr in the masjid. He read his adhkar, Quran, prayed Salatul Duha, and eventually he leaves for home. When he comes home, he asked his wife, one of the mothers of the believers, is there any food, breakfast? So she responds and she said, there's no food, Ya Rasulullah. So the Prophet ﷺ said, in that case, I'm going to fast. So he made the niyyah for fasting when? After Fajr. But that was a sunnah fast, it wasn't a compulsory fast. On another occasion, Rasul ﷺ came and he asked, the same time, is there any food? So they said, yes, there is food, so he had breakfast. So when there wasn't food, he said he's going to make an intention to fast. So it's permissible when I'm performing a sunnah fast to make my niyyah anytime from after Fajr until Zawal. As long as I make my niyyah before Dhuhr enters, my fast is valid. On condition that I don't eat anything before my niyyah. So if I entered morning, I never ate anything, I never drank anything, I never did anything that invalidates my fast, then if the waqt of dhuhr has not yet entered, I can make a niyyah for fasting. And my niyyah will be valid and the sunnah fast will be valid. Everyone understands it? But what if I ate? I woke up, I had a I went to Tashirikas and I bought me a nice full English breakfast and a nice flat white. And then I stood up and I said, I wanted to fast today. Can I make any to fast now? No. According to the official view, you can't fast. Some scholars say you can actually still make any, even if you ate something. No. But the official view is you cannot. So the niyyah is a condition for the validity of fast. And two aspects regarding the niyyah. I must make the niyyah at night. And number two is I must specify what fast I'm fasting. That's in the case of a compulsory fast. Everyone has that. That as much as the niyyah. He then said, rahimahullah ta'ala, that the condition for the validity of fast is also, he said, abstention. You must abstain for a number of things. So he said, I don't want to make this bigger. He said, abstaining from A, intentional intercourse. From B, masturbation. From C, inducing vomiting. From D, having any substance reach a body cavity, such as the inside of an ear or urethra, through an open orifice. I'll explain what all of that means in a moment. The sinking of, I couldn't get a better translation here. When you apply oil or cream to your body, then it sinks in or seeps in through the pores. Absorb. Who said absorb? Allah. So the absorbing of cream, of oil or cream through the pores, or the taste of kuhal in one's throat, does not harm the validity of the fast. Also doing any of the above out of ignorance, forgetfulness, or compulsion does not break the fast. What he is speaking about here is, so first of all, he said that you must abstain. What must you abstain from? You must abstain from anything that invalidates the fast. Now, the things that invalidate the fast, I listed them as A, B, C, and D. 4. I think it's just going to be 4. So what are these 4 things? And how is it that these 4 things is going to take up a whole night? Number 1 is sexual intercourse. For whether the sexual intercourse is permissible sexual intercourse, haram sexual intercourse, any sexual intercourse will invalidate the fast. A person, however, that forgets his fasting and then has intercourse, his fast will be valid. No. Also, the intercourse is one of the most serious ways in which a person breaks his fast, because if a person intentionally breaks his fast through intercourse, then there's a special kafara expiation for that sin. There's a special. So first of all, a person who intentionally has intercourse, knowing that he's fasting in the month of Ramadan, he's first of all a sinner, and he must pay a great expiation. And that great expiation is that he now has to pay in that one day with the fasting of a full month, 30 days, consecutive 30 days. So you need to set free a slave. A person that had sexual intercourse in the month of Ramadan, the great expiation, the kafara al-uzma is, number 1, you must set free a slave. Itqu raqabatin mu'mina. A believing slave you need to set free. If you don't have a slave to set free, then you should fast 2 consecutive months. You need to fast 2 consecutive months. So you have فَصِيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ مِنْ قَبْلِ يَتَمَاسَى, taking from that ayah in the Quran. 2 consecutive months means that Islamic months. From the first of Muharram, the entire Muharram, and then Muharram Safar, the entire Safar. If I miss a day of those 2 months, I feel too tired or too weak, so I skip a day and I eat, then I must start the 2 months from over. And if I cannot fast 2 consecutive months, then I need to feed 60 people. Everyone should receive a mud of food, which is approximately 700 grams of food. No. That's basically what the zakat al-fitr that you pay. you need to pay that to 60 people. Zakatul Fitr, there's a discussion, I don't know if we're going to have time to have it or not, but we normally release two figures. The one figure is around 30 Rand and the other is around 70 Rand. So 30 times 60, that's what you'd have to pay if you're not able to fast 2 months consecutively. However, most people, whether they appreciate it or not, can actually think, oh, they do have the capacity to fast 2 consecutive months. It's just very difficult. And that's the expiation. That's what you need to do to make up for 1 day of Ramadan that you broke intentionally via intercourse. It doesn't refer to a person that eats in the month of Ramadan. He decides he's going to drink something or eat something. I eat after the pak. That person doesn't have to fast 2 months. Like when we were young, our parents used to tell us that if you eat in Ramadan, you must fast 2 months to make up for that eating. But that's wrong. It only applies to the person that had sexual intercourse in Ramadan. Somebody asked the question, what if a person says, he wants to have sexual intercourse, but then he says that, unfortunately, I have a sip of water. So I break my bottle of water, and then I have sexual. They said, no, you will still have to pay the expiation of fasting 2 months. No. So you need to abstain from sexual intercourse, number 1. Number 2, you need to abstain from masturbation. Any action that leads to an ejaculation, that's istimna, that will invalidate the fast. The condition is that you must know it's haram to do that. That is going to break your fast. You must do it intentionally and by choice. If those conditions are met and you ejaculate intentionally, then your fast will break. Of course, a person that is asleep and has a wet dream, what's the ruling of his fast? His fast is fine. There's nothing, it doesn't, because he is not intentionally bringing himself to an ejaculation. Or she is not intentionally bringing herself to ejaculation. If it happens in your sleep, then that has no impact upon the validity of your fast. The third is, you need to abstain from istiqa'ah, from inducing vomiting. If you bring yourself to vomit, one of the ways in which a person brings him or herself to vomit is by placing your finger down your throat. If you induce vomit, your fast is broken. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that man dhara'ahu al-qay' fala qada alayh. A person who his nauseous and his vomit overpowers him, there's no qada for that person. He continues fasting. The problem with vomiting is what? When you vomit, come what may, when you bring out food, some of it goes back down your throat. And that's why that causes your fast to break. So you brought out vomit and then some goes down, your fast is invalid, and you must make qada. If you did it intentionally, but if it overpowered you, then you overlook. Man dhara'ahu al-kay, Rasul said, fala qada alayh. Wa man istaqa'a, whoever induces vomiting, fa'alayhi al-qada, must make qada. Now, what happens if a person, he induces vomiting, but he has conviction that no vomit went back down his throat? Well, he have to, is his fast valid or invalid? Still invalid. Still invalid. Because Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, whoever induces vomiting, he must make qada, meaning his fast is invalid, whether no food or vomit went back down his throat or not. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And then perhaps the most important one, and this relates to eating and drinking and the like, the last thing that you need to abstain from while fasting is what the scholars call husulu aynin ila jawfin, or ila ma yusamma jawfan. So it's like a mouthful, so you need to be focused. Sometimes a lot of things, if I'm unclear or going too fast over it, you should just, Shaykh, can you explain again? Because if you're covering something for the, I don't know, 20th time, then sometimes you take it for granted that there may be someone that is receiving it now for the first time. So this is something that requires your mind has to be present. The scholars, they deduce from the various narrations of the Prophet ﷺ, all the madhab, all 4 madhab, that if a substance reaches a body cavity, that invalidates the fast. If a substance reaches a body cavity. Now, through an open orifice. I told you it's a mouthful. A substance reaching a body cavity through an open orifice invalidates the fast. Now, substance is easy to understand because anything that has substance, whether it's liquid, whether it's solid, whether it's dry, jamid, solid, same. That's a substance. The second thing is an open orifice. Your open orifices are parts of your body that are naturally open. So your mouth would be one, your nostrils would be another, your ears, even though your eardrum technically prevents anything from going through the eardrum. Your eyes, it's an open orifice, it's an opening into your body. Your backside, the anus, as well as the urethra, which is the opening of urine. Those are the natural open orifices the body has. So if any substance goes through an open orifice, doesn't have to be actually a natural open. It could be unnatural. So if I have a hole here in my stomach, for example, so I have like a catheter coming in, wherever it goes in, right? That's an opening, it's an open orifice. If any substance goes through an open orifice into a body cavity, the fast is invalid. Now, a body cavity is another statement that you're required to apply your mind to. Because generally, if you can, I can give you examples of the body cavities that the jurists will speak about, maybe. So they speak about the big colon. And so you have your digestive system, you have the stomach that connects to your long intestine, and then you have your long intestine and your small intestine. That's your colon. Right? So that's an open orifice. And therefore, if somebody was to use a suppository and push it up his backside, and it reaches his large intestine or his colon, then it invalidates his fast because it's a body cavity and it's a substance reaching the body cavity. Right? Similarly, the common examples are if anything goes, my chest area is here, from my throat, this whole entire area is the body cavity. This is the main body cavity. And therefore, when I swallow any substance that goes past my throat, in fact, not past my throat, the body cavity starts, I must show it to you on a drawing. I don't know the terms for it also. But what is your kleine tongetje is your epiglottis. Is it right? Past that and your tonsils. The jurists define exactly where between those 2 points. If anything goes beyond those 2 points, your fast is invalid. That's why the COVID test was an area of debate, whether it invalidates the fast or not. Because when a doctor came, whoever it was, and they took that cotton bud, they pushed it to the back of your throat. And the back of your throat is part of a body cavity. So the test is a substance, and the test is reaching a body cavity, and that invalidates the fast. Therefore, when fasting, we said that if a person needed a COVID test, then it's preferable to go for even the nose COVID test, there was some issue there as well. But anyway, we're going to get into COVID. COVID was a very sad time in history. Alhamdulillah, Allah allowed us all to survive COVID. And the big lesson that we should take from COVID is the amount of time we wasted discussing. Our energy, our passion, our arguments, our fights, our discussions. How many people became excited about it? People became obsessed with the discussion of COVID, and all the time it's just wasted. Not coming back. And it won't benefit me when I meet Allah tomorrow. I think that's the biggest lesson that everyone should take from COVID. So, a substance reaching a body cavity. So if I eat anything, it's a substance reaching a body cavity. When I drink anything, it's a substance reaching a body cavity. The asthma pump is something that always comes up. So the asthma pump, if I take the asthma pump and I squeeze it out onto my hand, it leaves a liquid. That liquid that comes from the asthma pump is a substance. And when I use the asthma pump, it's a substance reaching, it goes to my lungs. My lungs is right here in my body cavity. So it invalidates the fast. If you do happen to have chronic asthma, you can come and speak to me and I may give you a different view to follow. But in the view for now, according to the majority of scholars, is that the asthma pump will invalidate the fast because it's a substance reaching a body cavity. Smoking is a substance. All right. There were some scholars that initially they spoke about the hookah and they said it doesn't break the fast. Actually broke open. One of the scholars came and they filters and through that they were able to determine how much substance is actually within that smoke. Right. And then there's agreement among them thereafter that the hookah and similar to hookah, the smoking will invalidate the fast because it's the substance reaching a body cavity. So everyone gets the idea. An example of a body cavity is said kabaltini udunin. So your ear, you have the outer ear. Wherever your earbud can reach until your eardrum, that's outer ear. Beyond your eardrum, the inner ear is a body cavity. If anything reaches that body cavity, your fasting is broken. Right? The only thing is that medically we know today that nothing goes beyond the eardrum. Unless your eardrum is pierced. If your eardrum is pierced, like it's strange. I used to hear some imam saying once upon a time that you can't use an earbud while fasting because if you use an earbud, your fasting breaks. Fasting don't break. Because for my fast to break, the earbud needs to go through my eardrum. And if anything is going to pierce your eardrum, you're definitely going to know that something pierced your eardrum. They say it's very painful. So you will definitely know. Some used to fast because water goes in your ear. But water doesn't go past the eardrum. Right? The eardrum stops anything from going beyond. So swimming, because my ears are underwater, doesn't invalidate my fast. Because I cannot go beyond my eardrums. Of course, if I'm swimming and I swallow water, my fast will break. If I'm swimming and water comes through my nose, my nostrils, into a body cavity, my fast will break. Otherwise, swimming won't invalidate my fast. Yes, can I swim, while swimming? Can I what? Can I swim while fasting? Can I swim while fasting? It's not desired. It's not desired. The scholars, they said that anything of luxury goes against the very nature of fasting. Anything that has any tarafuk in it, applying perfume to my body, that's makruh while fasting. Because there's luxury therein. And the fasting person is staying away from his desires for the sake of Allah. So swimming won't break my fast as long as I don't swallow water or inhale water through my nose. Now, but it's not befitting for the person to fast. It will be considered makruh because the fasting person should not be engaging in luxuries. Now, everyone gets that. The other example he gave was urethra now. However, if anything reaches a body cavity, but it's not through a open orifice, then it does not invalidate the fast. So he gives an example. He says that if you have you apply cream on your chest, the oil on your chest, and then it gets absorbed through your pores. So once it's absorbed through your pores, it may reach the last layer of skin, which is inside the body cavity. So will it invalidate the fast or not? They say no, because it's not an opening. The pores is not an opening. Similar to that is if a person applies, the example he made in the text, he applies kuhl to his eyes. You know what is kuhl? In English, we call it antimony. The Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, alaykum bil ithmid, you should use ithmid. Ithmid is the sunnah kuhl. What did he say? فَإِنَّهُ يُنْبِتُ الشَّعْرِ وَيُجْلِي وَيَجْلُ الْبَصَرِ. It clears your eyesight and it causes your eyelashes to grow. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, before sleeping every night, you take ithmid. Ithmid is we call it antimony, but it's a crushed stone. Sometimes reddish, sometimes blackish, crushed into a powder. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam should take what they call a meal, which is a stick that was an applicant, that you would dip the stick, the meal, in the kuhl pot, and you would remove it, and then there would be kuhl around it, and he would place it in his eye and wipe it through. And how he did it, there were different ways in which he did it. Some said it was thrice in the right and 2 in the left. Some said he did 1 in the right, then 1 in the left, and 1 in the right, 1 in the left, 1 in the right, and he ended off with the left. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he should do that before going to bed at night. Now, kuhl is a substance. When you use kuhl, sometimes you find the taste of the kuhl in your throat. However, the scholars, they said that kuhl won't break the fast, even if you find the taste in your throat. Why? Because anything, or eye drops for that matter, anything that you place in your eyes, because the connection between the eye and the nasal cavity, there's tear ducts that works very similar to a pore. So it may seep through into your throat, but it's similar to a pore, and therefore it's not considered to be a manfad mahtuk, an open orifice. And since it's a substance reaching a body cavity, but not through a open orifice, it does not break the fast. So those are the 2 masalas that he mentioned over here. Is everyone with me? Of course, if a person does any of this while forgetting that he or she is fasting, has jima, masturbates, even though it's haram, or eats or drinks, and forgetting that he is fasting, then the fast won't be invalid. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Man nasiya wa huwa sa'im. Whoever forgets his fasting, and then what does he do? فَأَكَلَ أَوْ شَرِبَ, and then he eats or drinks. فَلْيُتِمَّ صَوْمَ, he should complete his fasting. فَإِنَّمَا أَطْعَمَهُ اللَّهُ وَسَقَاهُ, for it is only Allah that gave him that food and drink. Now, the problem about this narration is that the day you studied that eating while forgetting that you fasted does not invalidate your fast. For it is only Allah that gave you the food and drink. From the day you hear this hadith, you never forget that you fasted. Sometimes you're like, can't I wish that, can't I just forget that I'm fasting? Oh, jahilan, or a person who is ignorant whether these things break the fast or not. But the ignorant person is not any ignorant person. It must be an ignorant person that is excused on account of his ignorance. In other words, someone living in our community, he does something that invalidates the fast, and then he says, I was ignorant about it, won't be excused. A person that is excused is a person that just became Muslim. He just became Muslim, and then he does something that invalidates the fast, and he never knew it breaks the fast. Or a person, he lives in a community where there are no ulama. He lives in a community where there are no ulama. That person is excused. All of us, mashallah, we are, even those with us online that may have accepted Islam recently, are Muslim for a long time. One. And number 2 is there's too many ulama in our community. And therefore no one here can claim that I was ignorant regarding the ruling of something. No. Where are we? He then said that, I'm going to read it from the translation that I have here. The fast is invalidated by the release of semen through skin-to-skin contact. If I touch the hand or any other part of the body of a female, or the female, she touches the hand or any other part of the body of a male, without any covering, that's skin to skin contact, kissing, or engaging in intercourse. So the fast is invalidated by the release of semen through skin to skin contact, kissing, or engaging in intercourse. However, it remains valid if semen is emitted due to thought or looking. Now, so I'm gonna look at both of these things now, as brief as I can, inshallah. So people are divided into two categories. In relation to myself, there are people that when I touch them, my wudu breaks. And there are other people, when I touch them, my wudu does not break. So those are two broad categories that you can keep in mind. If I touch, my wudu breaks. If I touch, my wudu doesn't break. Two categories. If I, through the skin-to-skin contact of a person who, if I touch that person, my wudu breaks, and I touch that person and it leads to an ejaculation, then my fasting becomes invalid if the skin-to-skin contact happened without any barrier between. And then it does not matter whether I had shahwa or didn't have shahwa, desire, which is very hypothetical, because how does a person ejaculate without desire? Right? But if it's someone, whether you had desire or not, your fast would be invalid. If you release semen by touching someone who does not break my wudu, then my fasting will be invalid only if I touch that person with desire. And there was no barrier between the skin. It comes down very much to this. There's a difference over here. I'm not going to repeat it again, but time is too tight. If you got the difference, alhamdulillah. The point is here that the release of semen on account of skin-to-skin contact or kissing someone of the opposite gender, or what was it now, or sexual intercourse invalidates the fast. The reason why he's discussing this here is if a person sits by himself and he starts thinking of sexual intercourse, right? And he's thinking, and that thinking of his leads to an ejaculation, that will not invalidate. So therefore, he said that, however, it remains valid, the fasting of a person will remain valid if semen is emitted due to thoughts or looking. The other conditions for the validity of fasting, he said, is that you must be a Muslim. If you're not a Muslim, then your ibadah is not valid. If you're not Muslim and you fast, then your ibadah is not valid. Like one of my friends many years ago he said that he was working for one of Cyril's companies. I don't know what, some umbrella, black umbrella or something like that. And he was saying that there was a year when Cyril fasted the whole month of Ramadan. So you say, mashallah, that's a beautiful thing to experience, what the Muslim experiences, and maybe you grew in spirituality, but the fasting is not valid unless you're Muslim. The condition for validity is that you must be Muslim. So the fasting of a non-Muslim is not valid. If a person is Muslim and for one moment he becomes a murtad, an apostate, his fast is batil. You must be Muslim for the whole day. Wal aql, you must have intellect, meaning that you must have sanity, you must be of a sane mind. The fasting of a mad person is not a valid fast. Yes, if we have someone that suffers from insanity in our family, then Bismillah, fast, no problem, feel part. But the fasting is technically not valid if you're not someone that is sane. Now, there are two things that are similar to insanity that requires a discussion. And this is real things that happen. Number one is intoxication, and the other is unconsciousness. So let's say someone falls on faints or falls because of the heat, or meets up in an accident and falls unconscious, right? Or someone he took a medication before Fajr that caused him to be intoxicated for half the day. Will their fasting be valid? Yes, sir. They either say the fast of these people, a person that's unconscious or a person that is intoxicated, their fast will be valid. With regards to intoxication, it must be a permissible intoxication. If a person is intoxicated because he drank a nice glass of lager before Fajr, his fast is not valid. Because he transgressed in becoming intoxicated. So the strictest of rulings apply to him. But if a person took medication because he's ill and then became intoxicated for half the day, his fast is valid. If a person fell unconscious during the day, his fast is valid. Now, unless his intoxication and his unconsciousness lasted from Fajr till Maghrib, then the fast won't be valid. Now, there's a third thing that is similar to both of these, and that is sleeping. If a person sleeps all day, will his fast be valid? He sleeps from Fajr till Maghrib. Never made Fajr, he made no Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib. Maybe he's still going to make Maghrib. No, his fast is valid, even if he slept all day. And of course, you should by now know that the mere fact that something is permissible doesn't mean you should do it. You know, where this applies is that you get Sharia compliant finance. The fact that the finance is Sharia compliant doesn't mean you must go buy your car. Right? Doesn't mean you should do that. The fifth condition is, and let's say first our ladies, the lady must be free from menstruation and postnatal bleeding. She must be free from menstruation, hayd, and nifas, which is postnatal bleeding. If for any moment of the day a lady has hayd or postnatal bleeding, so she's pregnant and then she's fasting, which is very rare these days because our women folk, for some reason, when they're pregnant these days, they don't fast. And they have a whole lot of doctor's certificates to support why they shouldn't fast. But the women folk of old, it was very rare when they didn't fast. Now, anyway, so let's say she's fasting while she's pregnant. And then she gives birth. And the child is born, and her blood starts after childbirth. Then her fast is invalid. Because in order for the fast to be valid, she must be free from menstruation and postnatal bleeding for the entire day. If for 1 moment, 1 minute before Maghrib, a lady's haid comes, the whole day doesn't count. She'll be rewarded, but it doesn't count as a valid fast. She must make qada of that. Now, and then he concluded the section by speaking about days when it's haram for you to fast. So he said it's haram for you to fast on the 2 Eids. You can't fast on Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited the fasting of the Eid al-Fitr and the Eid al-Adha. And it's also haram to fast the days of Tashriq. The days of Tashriq are the 3 days after Eid al-Adha, where you can still be slaughtering. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that the days of, he said, Ayyamu Mina, the days of Mina, which is the days of Tashriq, because the Hajj, when the sun sets on the day of Eid after you perform Tawaf al-Ifadah and you need to relax a bit in his hotel, from the time of Maghrib, he travels to Mina and he spends the next 2, but supposed to be 3 days at Mina. So the days of Tashriq are known to be the days of Mina. The Prophet said that the days of Mina are days of eating and drinking. And therefore the Eid al-Adha is usually celebrated for 4 days. The day of Eid and 3 days thereafter. No. And the prohibition of fasting the days of Mina, the days of Tashriq, is not only for the pilgrim, it applies to everyone. For the pilgrim and the non-pilgrim, it's haram for anyone to fast on those days. As how it's haram to fast during the second half of the month of Sha'ban, unless you have a standard practice of fasting. So if I fast every Monday or Thursday, or Monday and Thursday, then in the second half of Sha'ban, I can fast Monday and Thursdays because that is my customary practice. That's my habitual ibadah that I make. But if I don't have that practice, then it's haram for me to fast from the second half of the month of Sha'ban. So that, in essence, that covers the most important aspects of fasting. May Allah allow us to reach the month of Ramadan. And may our fasting be maybe fast in the best way that we can. And the best way of fasting, as our scholars explained, is not only to fast by abstaining from food and drink, from allowing any substance to reach a body cavity. The Salihin, they used to fast with their limbs. So they protected their tongues when they were fasting, and they protected their hands, and they protected their feet, and they ensured that they did nothing with any limb of their body that was displeasing to Allah. And greater than that were those who did not only fast by abstaining from food and drink, and they did not only fast with their limbs by protecting their limbs, their eyes and ears and tongues from doing anything that was displeasing to Allah, they fasted with their hearts. Imam Ghazali calls that the fasting of the elect of the elect, are people that fast with their hearts, and fasting with the heart means that the heart is present with Allah. The heart is connected to Allah all day. And to many of them, if their hearts were absent of Allah for a moment during the day, they would consider their fast to be invalid. If their hearts disconnected from Allah for one moment in the day of Ramadan, they consider their fast to be invalid. And some of them, they said, if my heart was to be disconnected from Allah for one moment, then you can consider me an apostate. So they were perpetually connected to the Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's from the objectives of fasting. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. The question here on online is, do I have to make the intention every single day? The intention must be made every single day. There's a view in the Maliki madhab that says, if you make the intention on the first night of Ramadan to fast the whole Ramadan, then you don't have to make the intention every night. So our teachers, they usually say on the first night of Ramadan, make an intention to fast the whole Ramadan. Because if you make an intention to fast the whole Ramadan on the first night, if during the month you miss the intention on one night, then your fast for the very least will be valid according to the Maliki madhab. And then out of caution, you should still make qada of it nonetheless. Assalamu alaikum. Another question is here. We grew up making niyyah for the entire month of Ramadan. Will this be valid and compensate for a missed niyyah? I just answered that question. Huh? That's an anonymous. And then again, Jayhalu, when a medical infusion make the fasting invalid. So, if my understanding here is somebody goes on the trip, will it invalidate the fast? Yes or no? What do you think? So when it comes to injections, so time is very tight. I know I'm over time. I know what time was Isha? 54. We're going to end now, inshallah. We're going to call the adhan, and we're not going to wait for the salah and make salah immediately. You get two types of injections. You get intravenous and you get intramuscular. The name should tell you what is what. So an injection that goes into the muscle, intramuscular or muscular, that doesn't invalidate the fast by consensus. Because the muscle is not a joke, it's not a body cavity. But if it's intravenous, meaning its injection goes into a vein, then they say that if the injection, the substance flows through the veins, it eventually flows towards the heart, which is in a body cavity. So when it reaches the heart, then the fast breaks. So an intravenous injection, the preponderant view is that it will invalidate the fast, but there are those who say that it won't invalidate the fast. And the intramuscular, there's agreement that it does not invalidate the fast. So I don't know if that answers the question. Does it mean one cannot use cream on one's face and body in Ramadan? No, you can use cream, the question is asking. The cream doesn't invalidate the fast, irrespective whether it reaches a body cavity or not, because the pores are not considered to be an open orifice. Sister Nazli is asking what happens in the case of someone who is on dialysis. Is their fast invalid? How does dialysis work now again? They flush out your the blood. I need to wrap my mind around it now again. Is there a substance reaching a body cavity? His own blood filtered through the machine without additions. No, that will invalidate the fast. Why? It should invalidate the fast, but I'll get back to the question. In our fiqh, they say if a person, if I chew on a string, if I swallow my saliva, it doesn't break my fast. But if I'm chewing on a string, and then I take the string out of my mouth, so now that saliva is out of my body. And then I put that same string back into my mouth, and I swallow the saliva that was on that string that left my body, my fast will become invalid. So that the analysis, I'll have a look at again. And I forget how we dealt with it. Is swimming valid? Is swimming allowed while fasting, even if you keep your head above water? I answered that question. If a lady goes for monthly checkup and a gynecologist insert his hand or an object into a private part, now, what do they call this now? Those type of checkups will invalidate one's fast. Therefore, women folk, unless there's a dire need, should only try to go for vaginal checkups outside of the month of Ramadan and not in the month of Ramadan. Does missing a salah invalidate the fast? No, it does not. Missing a salah is not. So I'm going to stop here now, inshallah, before we make some of the musallis upset. Allah grant us tawfiq. Yes, Ali. Last question. Yes. So if I'm making qada of a compulsory fast, it's a compulsory fast, and all compulsory fast, the intention must be made at night, before Fajr enters. Barakallahu feekum. Allah grant us tawfiq. Allah guide us in our doings. Allah make us from the people of knowledge, inwardly and outwardly. Allah allow that our fasts are all valid, that we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day that we meet Him with fasts that are valid and with Him being pleased with us, such that He allows you and I to enter through the door Ar-Rayyan. Ameen Ya Rabbal Alameen. Next week, we'll start off with a discussion upon whom fasting is compulsory. And one of the discussions I want to have next week is the fasting of young children and the guidance of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Before any doctor or any Western scientist, before anyone, what was the guidance of the best of creation and the most knowledgeable of creation with regards to the fasting of children? Inshallah, tabarak wa ta'ala. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. You can keep that adhan short.